Okay, I'm Professor Benavides, and let's talk about making decisions with Java. So we're going to create a little application called BMI. We're going to ask the user for their height, then we're going to ask them for their weight. This is going to be utilizing Dialogs. We're then going to compute the BMI and then use an else if ladder to provide some kind of feedback. Make this feedback very easy. We'll just simply provide feedback as to whether the BMI is invalid, underweight, healthy, or overweight. We'll create a decimal formatter, build an output string, and show the output string in a message dialog. So let's get cracking. Start NetBeans. And we'll go ahead and create our application. And I pretty much gave you the problem statement. So it's just a matter of walking through the steps now. I'm going to go to File, New Project, Java Application Next. I'm going to go ahead and call this BMI. I'm going to do it all caps, put it on the desktop, and I'm going to get rid of the package statement. Click and finish. This will create the class for us. And so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the unessential comments, align my curly brackets vertically. And then I'm going to go ahead and comment the class, ending curly bracket. And I'm going to go ahead and comment the end of the main curly bracket. And I do this so that hopefully you won't delete the ending curly bracket, and also to understand the structure of a Java application. It's inside of a class. We have a method called main. That's where the action is going to occur. Later on, we're going to go ahead and learn how to create other structures in other places. Okay, so for right now, let's just go ahead and put in a few comments, specific comments. But really before that, let's go ahead and get the general comments out of the way. So that would be / press enter, and that would be program, programmer, date, and description. Okay, so we're going to go ahead. This is called BMI. And you go ahead and put your name, the date, and the description. I'll just say conditionals, right? And in this case, we're going to zero in on the else if ladder. So I come right to the beginning of the opening curly bracket in main and press enter, and that gets me right into the place where I need to be. Just going to go ahead and put in some basic comments. I'm just going to do them real basic. And of course, that'll take care of the height and weight. And then we'll say compute BMI. That's an equation. And then we'll go ahead and provide, we'll call this provide feedback. This is where, based upon the BMI, we will provide feedback as to whether that BMI is invalid, underweight, healthy, or overweight. And then we'll go ahead and create a decimal formatter. Then we'll go ahead and build our output string. And then we'll show the output string in the dialog. So that's pretty much where we're going to go. With this, it's just a matter of taking it one step at a time. Now I know that this particular application is going to utilize Dialogs, so I'm going to need to import the geometry pane. I might as well just go ahead and do it now. And I'm going to need to format the numbers to look a particular way. I'm going to want them formatted to have a required 2 decimal places. But sometimes you don't need to do the import statement if you know how to type. So let me go ahead and show you that. So I'm just going to go ahead and say string and create a variable called response, because I'm just going to dump everything in response. I'm going to use that a couple of times. So I'm going to go ahead and say response get geoption pane dot, and see what happens. We get the drop down list. I thought you said I needed to have the import statement. Well, if you can spell good, you can go ahead and just, keep on going, right? So this particular case, I'll go ahead and say null. I accepted the first one. I know it's an overloaded thing, and later on I'll learn a little bit more about the overloaded features of the show input dialog message. For right now, I just chose the first one and used it in its simplest manner. Null means it's not associated with a form, and then we'll just say enter in your height in inches. And we'll put a colon, and just to make things look a little bit better, since it's going beyond the red line. And who prints anyway, right? I'm just going to press enter here. So I'm ready to go ahead and do the conversion of that string to a numeric. So, because we know that everything that comes into a dialog is a string. In order to pop it into the formula, I'm going to need to have that string converted to a numeric. So double weight gets we'll use the double class dot parse double, and we pass it response. The editor threw in response is used a lot because this particular editor seems to use it quite a bit. Okay, so now I'm going to live life dangerously. It may or may not help. I'm going to go ahead and copy these 2 lines, and let's see if I can get away with something. And I'm going to go ahead and paste it. You get the red line because you can't create the same variable twice. So we'll say enter in your weight in pounds. So I'll just say weight in pounds. And in this particular case, I put in the wrong variable name for the one above. Can you believe that? This is height. Sorry. And then that one's weight. Right? So then it's right now. I mean, your question needs to correlate to the variable that you're going to pop the thing into. So if I ask you for your height, put it into the height variable, right? If I ask you for your weight, you put it into the weight variable. I was getting ahead of myself, sorry. So now we're ready to go ahead and compute BMI. So we'll just go ahead and say double BMI gets this little formula. Get it. I'm sure there are various of them. This is probably one of the simplest. Times 703, who knows why. And then we'll multiply height times height. And that's my formula. So now we're going to go ahead and provide feedback. And this is where we're going to use an else if ladder to go ahead and provide that feedback. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to test the BMI at certain ranges. And if it's true, I'll return invalid, underweight, healthy, or overweight. And that's going to be, I'm going to be returning a string. So I'll just go ahead and declare that string now, and I'll call it classification. And I'll just assign the empty string to it right now, just to initialize it before I go into the else if ladder. So for my else if ladder, I'll start off with an if, and you know all conditions in Java are in parentheses. So if the BMI, in this particular case, is less than 16. Got to be really careful which way you're using the relational operators. You know, so if this condition turns out to be true, I want to do something, right? I'll say classification gets, in this particular case, invalid. Right? Then I'll do my else if. Else if BMI is greater than or equal to, in this case, 16, and BMI is less than 18.5. In this particular case, classification gets underweight. Another else if. If you want, you can live life dangerously and copy this, paste it. You're either going to save time or you're going to create a royal mess. And you know, and this. So we're going to go from 18.5 to 25. Right? And in this particular case, we're going to say healthy. Then we're going to go ahead and say else if BMI greater than or equal to 25. In this case, classification gets overweight. Okay. So that's my logic right here. Now, I do want to point out something really important here. The proper way of making an else if ladder is to use curly brackets. Yeah. And why didn't I use them? Well, the curly brackets, you put a block of code in them, right? And I already know that I'm just going to use one line of code. So the logic is not going to get messed up. Where you mess up the logic is if you have several lines of code and you don't use the curly brackets, it's not going to work out right for you. So if you want, feel free to go ahead and, they say you should just go ahead and build it ready for expansion. So you would just put in the open curly bracket, close curly bracket, and put your line of code in there. That's fine with me, right? So that's the proper, this is the proper way of building an else if ladder with these curly brackets. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and create my formatting object. So that will be decimal format. Well, let's go ahead and do the input statement. Remember, input statements are outside the body of the class, or import is what I wanted to say. So import java.text. In this particular case, it is a decimal format. I use the arrow key to go down there and then press tab key, semicolon. Okay. All right, so I'm coming back. Now I can create my formatting object. So it'll be decimal format. And I'm just going to say DF or decimal format. A lot of people want to call it, you know, pattern formatter. You're welcome to call it anything that kind of makes sense. DF kind of makes sense to me. And the reason why I shorten it is because you're going to end up using the format method of this object, and it gets to be quite long. The line of code gets, you know, quite long if you fully spell something out. So it'll be new decimal format. And we pass it the format that we want. In this case, we're going to use pound, 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 period, and we'll say 0, 0. That's why sometimes they'll call it, a formatting object, or, or pattern format for the, for the object name. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and build our output string, and then we're going to pass that to the dialog. So we'll say string output. Yeah, I could have continued to use response, but I think output's a better name, and for what is inside of the string. You want to have strings that string names represent what they have inside of them. So I'll say height, colon, space, because otherwise it'll be stuck together, and I'm going to concatenate the height variable. Okay. Now I'm just going to go ahead and finish this off right here, and I'm going to come back and build it later, because I want to go ahead and go directly to calling the, I want to go ahead and call the message dialog and pass it the output string, so I can start testing this. So it's JOptionPay, and this will be show message. Notice how I just type in the M, and I'm just going to choose the first one of these overloaded methods, put the open parenthesis, and of course null, and then highlight it. Sometimes it tries to help you, but it helps you wrong. Like it wants to put df in there. That doesn't belong in there, but we're going to pass output. Okay. So there we go. We're sort of finished. Let's test it to see if I have. We're not completely finished, but I want to test it to see if I have any misspelled words, and I haven't used the. I have not used the decimal formatter either. A lot of times people will forget that. It's one of the requirements to format the data. So let's go ahead and run this and see what we have. So what is your height? If you have test data that you have used with a calculator, I would definitely recommend you comparing that with the calculator, just to make sure, I have no idea what I'm putting in here. Put an 8. So the height is 65 inches. Guess how much that is in feet, right? Oh, feet and inches. So if you'll notice, it's saying 65.0. Is that the way we want the data to be shown? Let's continue with this. And the way the data should be shown is pretty much up to the client. I mean, you may or may not want. Some people are real compulsive about, well, I'm going to give everything 2 decimal places. Some people say, well, I'm not going to give any decimal places. I mean, so you've got to be, it's got to make sense. It's got to be consistent, most of the time consistent. We haven't applied the decimal formatter. Let's continue to build our output string. Now I'm going to come over here to height, press enter. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to concatenate that with another string. I'm going to have to take it down a line. So it'll be \n and say, wait, colon, space. If you don't put that space on there, the string gets stuck to the numbers and it looks kind of weird. So in this case, we'll type in, we'll concatenate that with wait. And then we'll press enter again there, put in another plus sign, and we'll go down another line, \n. We'll put in the BMI, colon space, and concatenate that with BMI. Let's go ahead and take this down one more line with the feedback that we get from the LCIF ladder. So new line, classification, colon space, and then finally classification. Okay. All right, let's run it again one more time, see what the output looks like. And so now I get this BMI with all of these decimal places on here. So let's just say we're going to go ahead and be compulsive, and this person is overweight. You know, you don't want to get too cutesy with this. You know, one person put down classification, you're going to die. Well, that's not, you know, that's not very professional. So let's stick with the classifications that we've specified here. And we need to format this. So let's just go ahead and format it to 2 decimal places. So we're going to use this formatting object here. And I formatted to 2. This is the pattern. So the pound signs are optional, and the zeros are, it means that it will be required. So I'm going to come over here to height, and I'm just going to do all 3 of them. I might as well, right? You know? So I'm going to double click on that, do Control X, and then I'll just say df dot format tab, open parenthesis, and then do a Control V, paste that in there. I mean, you can delete what's on there and just type it in the long way if you want. It doesn't matter. I'll never know what you did. So this is just the way I do it. So df dot format, open parenthesis, Control V, and let's just do that one more time for BMI. I cut it, do a df dot format. So format is a method, and we're passing BMI as an argument. Got to make sure that you've got all the vocabulary down. So df is an object, right? We know it's an object because we use the new keyword to create this object. The new keyword calls the constructor, and we pass this pattern to it. So that's the pattern that this formatting object will have. And utilizing the format method of this object, we can pass it variables, and the return of this, the return of this will then be concatenated with height. So let's run it one more time. So we'll continue with this 65 inches, 180 pounds. And if you'll notice, everything compulsively is set to 2 decimal places, and it looks a little bit better than that BMI going all the way across, you know, on there. So that's basically how you would use you know, an LCF ladder. The way people go wrong on this sometimes is they don't pay a lot of attention to their relational operators, and the wrong feedback is given. You've got to make sure that it's all sequential. Notice how it's kind of going down. I called it a ladder because I'm saying BMI less than 16. So over here, it makes sense to say BMI greater than or equal to 16 because this one didn't catch it. You don't want to overlap this stuff because then your logic will be messed up, right? So they're greater than or equal to, and here's the range, less than 18.5. So in the next one we say here, we'll say greater than or equal to 18.5 because this didn't include the equal sign, right? And BMI less than 25, and then everything over or equal to 25 will just be overweight. Okay. So that, you know, this program here was enhanced with this LCF structure here that helped us to provide or to test it. We ended up testing the BMI variable and provided a different kind of feedback based upon the BMI score. So it helps us to make decisions. In this particular case, the decision that was made was to provide feedback for that particular score range. All right. So that's this little application. I hope that you found it informative, and that you can go ahead and use it in other kinds of problems. The reason why I say that is that this is a very basic input-output processing program. Imagine this, with this template, if you would, you could pretty much build a lot of other programs. You could say, well, what do I need to prompt? What do I need to ask the user? Well, that would be this structure right here. Now, you kind of work backwards as to this time I computed BMI, but it could be computing future value or, total value or present value. It could be, you could compute a multitude of things. Whatever the formula is, you work backwards on that to find out what you need to prompt the user for. In the past, before we learned how to prompt, we just made simple assignments to the variables. But now we have the knowledge to prompt with these dialogues, put that information into the form and into a formula, use an else-if structure to enhance the kind of feedback that we're providing. See, if we didn't have that feedback on here, you would just simply say height, weight, BMI, and that would be the extent of this program. But we have enhanced this program with this else-if ladder to provide us with extra information as to what that BMI means. You could go ahead and use this logic for many things. I mean, just think of it now. You could create a, like the blood work stuff that you get from the doctor with all the ranges and stuff like that. You could, I mean, I know that this is rather primitive, but this is the beginning of something like that. What do you get in that blood work? You see that, a particular score is then tested through a variety of ranges and you get feedback. I mean, your cholesterol level is either going to be high, okay, or it's going to have a classification or multiple levels of high, right? So there you go. That's how you can go ahead and use this as a template to solve many other kinds of programs, because we're using the show input dialog to receive, then we're using the show message dialog to show. Many people like to go ahead and just build the output right in here, build their string output right in here. I like to go ahead and create my string first, my string variable, and then pass that string variable to the show message dialog. Now remember, the show message dialog as well as the show input dialog methods are overloaded methods. And as time goes on, we're going to learn how to choose a more appropriate one. In my demos here, in my demo in this application, I chose the simplest one so that I could provide a simple demonstration on how to use these dialogues. Okay, well, that's pretty much all I got to say about this idea. Thank you very much.